edited out stuff that I don't think is like interesting. But what I think is interesting is like biased.
Or offensive.
What do I give a fuck about offending anyone? No, I mean like I don't know how to explain this very well. I have to listen to it, so I have to find it interesting, right? Sometimes I'll say shit, I was like, no one cares, dude. Why you put it in there? So I'll delete it. It's like this silence right now, I would probably edit this out because it's boring.
Yeah. The silence is deafening and it's killing us. Or
No, I'm
whatever's
fine with
the
it.
saying.
No, you had it right. This is the internet's worst gaming podcast. I'm your host, Loki Jarson. Here with me again is my in real life brother, Lord Masta on YouTube, also known as Thomas. Hello, Thomas.
Hello, Loki Jarson. It's been 2 months, which the last time we did a podcast, it was also 2 months.
Well, this is the 2 month bi-monthly. It's not bi-monthly because that means twice a month. Yeah, whatever. What's on the agenda for today? Let's do rundown.
Oh, plenty of things.
Such as?
I mean, for starters, and I know it's that time of the podcast again where first thing we talk about some strategy game before we get into the, mainly console games.
Yeah, go ahead.
Last time we talked in depth of the two DLCs from Crusader Kings III, which such as Northern Lords and some of the Royal Court, which, by the way, when we did the last podcast, we originally thought it was going to be released on November or December, but no, they decide to push it back.
Okay, so let's keep a running tally, shall we, of things that have been delayed during this show.
So you could say originally I would have been doing this series right now and we wouldn't be talking right now, but no, it hasn't happened yet. So instead, the new, it wasn't new, it's just they finally announced the release date of the Royal Court DLC of Crusader Kings III, which will be on February 8th, 2022.
There's like 15 games coming out in February, plus DLC. So it's a packed month for being so short.
Yeah, but at least it'll be quite a dandy.
Is this one of those leap years?
No.
22 is not a leap year?
Every U.S. election year is a leap year.
That's not helpful.
That's another indicator.
That's not helpful because those are 4 years long. Every election cycle is 4 years long.
And to some 5.
So, what have you been doing instead of playing that DLC?
Well, 2 ongoing Crusader Kings II series. I'm still in the old game because of current commitments. Not to mention having a bit of fun with one series, which the first one is the ongoing Republic of Amalfi series, a southern Italian merchant republic where I even used a mod that has the little own flavor events that relates to the Amalfi coast and the republic itself. We were a Longobarд culture, yet to become Neapolitan. You know, the guys that were synonymous with southern Italians were yet those same southern Italians that live in America these days.
Well, not the same.
This is where most of them came from.
The descendants. That doesn't mean they're the same. This is the same conversation we had before.
Yeah.
It's like, the descendants of the Avar, which doesn't mean anything in 2021. Anyways.
And the other is series which was in hiatus but decided to return to it, and that's the Sogdia series as part of the When the World Stopped Making Sense overhaul mod, which is set during the late antiquity. Basically right after the fall of the Western Roman Empire and prior to the early Middle Ages. So it's in between. So that's what I've been doing lately instead of waiting for that Royal Court DLC to come out, which I'll finally start that series starting on February. In which I will tell you a few other features that they will add in that upcoming update. One of which we didn't have time to discuss that in the previous podcast, but I will only bring about 4 little things, and then we'll move on.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing is minor titles. Back in CK2, minor titles is just a way of saying it's like, oh, this courtier or this vassal. It's like if I want to make this guy a little more happy instead of bribing him by sending him money or something to make him feel pleased, well, then just give him a minor title, just a slight increase of opinion, which basically didn't mean much, except for the court physician, court tutor position, and depending on what culture or government you are, such as I was a merchant republic, you need 3 state inquisitors, the guys who are the judges, similar to the Republic of Venice with the Council of 10.
When you say Inquisition, you usually mean something a little more violent.
Yeah, state inquisitors. That's for a matter of justice in the state rather than one's faith or culture. That, again, just a minor title in CK2, which didn't mean much other than it's like, okay, here's an increased opinion, and here's a small monthly salary and your monthly prestige gain. It's almost like me saying, come on, lads, the job pays well. But now, here in the upcoming expansion, the minor titles, which they mean a lot more now, which allows you positions such as a seneschal, that's SENES.
I know what a seneschal is, yes.
Okay, what is that exactly?
It's like a vizier.
Vizier.
Mm-hmm.
As compared to, again, Perso-Arabic cultures where Grand Vizier is the equivalent of Prime Minister or Chancellor.
Well, that's what it is then. Then say Prime Minister, that's even better.
Or representation.
It's the guy who handles like the day-to-day boring crap.
Uh-huh. And of course, the court physician was already there ever since CK3 came out, but now they made a slight change to that. It says, yes, it's their job to take care of you and the courtiers and possibly the person himself, even those who got wounded in battle. I remember in my old Bactria series, a spin-off of the Asturias series, where I had one of my knights, so to speak, also be a court physician, so he's our combat medic, and he was able to treat the wounds of our knights that got wounded in battle, and they're right back up in the front line. And it increased his, physician skill, just increased his learning skill, so we can say he's a real good medic, so to speak. But now they have the changes to the said minor titles, like the physician. Now you have to pay attention to the skills of not just learning, but a few other things, just to see what kind of level of aptitude it has. And as well as adding a bit of the base court grandeur and monthly court grandeur change, because we talked about the throne room and a few other things in the previous. And added more such as bodyguards, where you can hire up to 2 bodyguards at the same time. They don't provide any passive modifiers like the other positions, but they do have 2 fairly powerful bonuses, such as prevent assassination attempts on you, and they reduce the risks of participating in battles, as long as you partake in the same battle together with your bodyguard. And you can appoint your knight as one of your bodyguards as well.
Why wouldn't you just have them do all the fighting and you do non-fighting?
Yeah, why on earth would a king be leading a battle if he's a real good administrator?
Yeah, that never happened in real... Well, and it did happen. In the cases it did happen, the king died.
It was around the Napoleonic Wars. That was the last instance of kings leading battles, leading troops into battle.
Yes, and then forever it's like, okay, you're a general. You no longer have to be in the battle.
Yeah, and let the guy who run the country do some administrating. He doesn't need to go out and get a sword or a gun to prove his manliness or what tactical mind he has. But also beware, those bodyguards that you appoint are also very powerful agents should they join a scheme against you, depending on their opinion towards you. Like if that bodyguard that you hired hates your guts so much, then he's likely to be an agent for a possible assassination plot.
Well, they should pay him better.
It actually happened to one Indian prime minister, got assassinated by their own bodyguard. But that's a different reason. And the other court positions include the food taster, which, you know what that's for, right?
So the king doesn't get poisoned.
Yeah, and also can also be a potential powerful agent in hostile schemes against you. But the food taster, besides, it reduces the chance of a hostile scheme against you because you know the guy is tasting the food, just like a bodyguard.
Unless the
Yeah, I
food
just
unless
realized
the
what I
food
just said.
taster poisons it.
Yeah, and it says it also has the chance to stopping poison-themed murder plots against you, and also you lose weight more quickly.
A slight tangent about the poisoner thing. So in Hitman, you know that video game. The second game, you can poison people by giving them putting a little thing in their drink, and they drink and they die instantly because it's magic. One of the targets you do this to has a food taster. So if you put poison in it, they'll taste the food first and they'll die, and it's like, well, no, you're under arrest. So you have to wait until after the taster has tasted, then you put the real poison in, and then the target drinks it, and then they die. That doesn't happen in Crusader Kings.
Uh, the last series I've done was mostly a long time ago, especially during the early part of the series where I've done a lot of intrigue, a lot of assassinations. I was on a streak, an assassination streak, but it's for specific. I'm not just killing some random ones, only killing the important ones that's important to our dynasty because we're trying to spread our dynasty around the region. So we were just picking and choosing rather than it's like we're just not assassinating somebody because we had a disagreement one time. Not that kind of guy. And other minor title court positions also include a court gardener, guy who takes care of your garden, and also adds
Is this
development
necessary
growth
in a
to
mod?
the. No, that's all in the upcoming DLC.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
also, it's for certain cultures who happen to have a cultural tradition of garden architects, where rulers can construct royal gardens and have the decision to recruit characters as a gardener trait. But I don't know what culture in the world that's into gardening big time because the only one that's
Babylon.
synonymous with me, the what?
Babylon.
Oh, obviously they went extinct right before the Middle Ages.
Well, it's because they're
At
gardening.
least, at least their language. Persians were also well-known gardeners. Even the Achaemenid Persian emperors, they aspired to be gardeners during their free time, despite their internal conquests. And of course, we couldn't show off the court positions without showing the court jester, complete with the jester's outfit.
The stupid little bell hat. Yeah.
Yeah, all that. All those bells and whistles. Which, of course, you can only put that on to a character whom you probably don't like, and you decide, let's be a dick with him, and he be the jester, be amused, or whatnot. And as well as having the possibility for stress-relieving events.
Let's just leave that there.
Yeah. And of course, we mentioned gardener is one of culture-specific if they happen to have the tradition. And as well as if you happen to be living in the British Isles area, especially in England, they have the Keeper of the Swans.
Hmm?
Any idea why would they keep swans?
Because they're nice looking birds. I don't. They're fucking terrors. If you've ever seen like the beak of a swan, it's got like a little tiny. They're not really teeth, but it's like things that they tear. Swans are awful. They will kill each other like by breaking each other's necks.
Like just a big old beak and go.
No, like they'll wrap their own neck around another neck.
Man,
They're like dolphins. Everybody's like, oh, it's such a romantic animal. No, they're murderers. They'll kill you.
they're nice to people, but not nice to each other.
Dolphins are not nice to people.
No.
No.
Anyways,
They try a
Wait,
lot
so-
of stress relieving techniques on people. Let's say that.
other than be amused by some joker.
What else is in this DLC?
Language and court language. Like we mentioned briefly about that, because I threw out an assumption about you may learn somebody else's language. Well, now you can in that upcoming DLC, which each culture has their own native language, obviously, and at its very core, they affect the baseline acceptance between cultures. And if two cultures share the same language pillar, they like each other better. In other words,
Spanish and Italian.
yeah, they may get along better. But I believe in the game they use two different terminologies, now that you mentioned those two. Iberian and Italian. two separate things. And and I'm sure in the German-speaking areas, they know a lot more better because not everybody spoke German back in medieval times. They were separate by dialects. And so they give you a scheme to learn the language because there's the intrigue scheme, there's the personal scheme, now there's a learn language scheme, a separate thing, I believe. Which is basically, if you, depending on your learning skill and a few other things, and you got free time, let's learn a language.
Let's
Other
do
than,
lingo.
yeah, in which again, the learn language is a learning-based scheme, which is chances of success are depends on how scholarly your character is. It's available for everyone, even young children who have a vastly increased chance of success / progress by the virtue of being young, less tired, and having working brains.
I think that's the truth.
And then also the other minor title is a court tutor, which they also help you with the increased scheme power to learn a language and improves education outcomes for your children. That's a separate thing. And as well as you find bonuses for this scheme added throughout the existing lifestyle trees, perks. Like we remember when we first talked about the game the first time. Compared it to Skyrim with the level up and get the perks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing for languages. Not saying language perks, I'm just saying the perks that you pick up also contributes to that little branch a bit. And of course, along the way, there's going to be events to say, like you kind of lost your patience to learning language. Like, do you want to try again? Do you want to take a less of an effort, or just drop it at all? And each average character is allowed to have at least the average of 2 foreign language limits. I mean, you got your native language, and you can learn up to 2 more. And though there is a perk that they give you another slot, which makes you look like a polyglot.
Like a what?
Polyglot. A multitude of languages.
Oh, okay.
A guy who has knowledge of many languages. Fluently, I may add. And, of course, if a character exceeds their foreign language limit, they're going to start getting events that it's going to overwhelm it, just to say that you might forget a language or a few words, or just gain stress and all that. Which is similar to how we handle characters of having too many lovers. It's stressful.
It seems very arbitrary. Because there are people, like, in real life who can memorize, who can be fluent in, 8 languages, but they don't have brain stress from knowing too many languages.
Yeah, but we don't know how the average human mind back in those times worked.
Sure we do. It's the same since the beginning. Just technology has changed. Brains haven't changed. They're stupid as ever.
Uh-huh. And plus, books aren't as widely available as people think. Books and scrolls.
It's one of those things where, everyone knows, quote-unquote, that, people back then didn't live as long and nobody could read. It's kind of, but they lived longer than we gave them credit for, and then more people were literate outside of this little bubble in fucking England.
Yeah, because we mentioned about the technology of medieval times where it was Byzantine Empire, Arabian Empire, and India were more sophisticated. It's just Western Europe for a period of time wasn't as much.
Yeah, but it was all happening at the same time. So whenever someone is like, this is the medieval era when everyone died at the age of 30 and nobody could read, it's like, that's only in this tiny area of the stupid island of England and its territories.
It's just a misconception that people still, to this day.
Yeah, I know.
And of course, when you learn the language all the way to you accomplish it and you learn that fluently, then another foreign culture, whether if they live outside it or inside of your country, they may look at you more respectively, not only in opinion, but also cultural acceptance if you are ruling a multicultural kingdom or empire. Especially the Byzantine Empire, which not everybody here was Greek. Yeah, and of course, what would you do with the said, language that you learned? It's like not only you impress the vassals and your friends, or in this case to your enemies by sending them an insult with their own words instead of a need of an interpreter, which is already the case ever since the beginning of the game and in CK2, since learning a language is not a thing back then in that game, anyhow. And we've mentioned about the court language, which, it's like, yeah, you may learn a few languages, but are you speaking the language of the court? As a way of saying it's like...
Political savvy.
Yeah. And I was reminded of an old Three Stooges joke, where they did a Three Stooges short. I don't know if you remember this. It's the one where they parodied the Nazis and the Axis and whatnot.
Remind me.
Where they were playing pool and Mo Hailstone. Yeah, and he says, "You never speak that word in this house." Yeah, one would think that. Like, imagine if you are a vassal, you speak your own language, and yet you do not know the language that's belonged to the court who may... And there's a chance that it's like, yeah, you may not know the language of that guy you are serving under, but yet the guy you serve under also speaks a different language because he has to speak that court language because of that guy's court language.
Sounds like a pain in the ass as most things with this game.
And I mentioned the upcoming Avar series, where I would be vassal to the Bulgarians, which means the court language would be Bulgarian, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the map mode, as it shows on the preview images, actually not the case. The court language of the Bulgarians is Greek, because proximity with the Byzantine Empire. So you have to learn that language and the court language and whatnot, just to have a little more respect. And of course, whenever you form your own independent kingdom or empire, you can choose your own native language to make it the court language. And as well as the possibility to spread that court language to all the other independent realms if you are that influential. You may never know if the entire Eastern Europe subcontinent speaks Greek as a court rather than whatever else.
And once again, I'm going to ask the same question I asked last time you brought something like this up. You're the guy in charge. Force everyone to speak the same languages as you. This has happened throughout history.
I'm sure there's a choice in that.
You're like a Crusader manager. You're not even Crusader King anymore.
And then we'll move on to artifacts and inventory. They're bringing back artifacts from CK2. Those little stuff that you put in the treasury, and as well as equipable items, right? Artifacts and inventory. I mean, I told you ad nauseum about the artifacts. I told you personally in many of my past plays, where to be weapons or armor, crown jewels, bones of a saint or a hero.
And these all give you arbitrary +1s to whatever.
As well as religious specific artifacts for Christians, Muslims, Zoroastrians, Indians, and pagans and the like. Which for some reason it gives them bonuses. Or makes them feel good. When I say makes them feel good, I mean health bonuses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not going to tell you all the artifacts that they'll be adding, because it pretty much speaks for itself. They'll just bring it over, and we know what the historical artifacts we were in those times that were important to them.
This again seems like yet another thing from this game that was already in the previous game, and they decided to not have it in the sequel.
And I see this image of an inventory screen. Like, just picture some RPG game where it says, here is your equipped inventory artifacts. Here is your crown. Here's your personal weapon, your personal armor, your regalia, and 4 trinkets. That's what you're allowed to have in your personal character.
Cool, and if you ever did anything with all that equipment, it'd be great. But again, this is a game of sitting in court and saying, oh, sorry, we can't speak English in this room.
And also, of course, you can also appoint a antiquarian minor title, which is the guy who takes good care to the artifacts, because every one of those artifacts has their own life cycles.
Unless he becomes corrupt and you piss him off, and then he'll just, burn all your stupid artifacts.
Or reduce its life of years. Like one example, such as this dagger that belonged to some Maharaja, where it says it's got 83 years left of his dagger's life.
Till the magic runs out?
Of its condition. There you go, condition. 83 years of its condition until it becomes, for the lack of a better term, rusted, and then it becomes useless once it reaches year zero, and it either becomes destroyed at your behest, or you tell the antiquarians like, okay, I need you to pay this amount of money to have this fully repaired.
Put it in a glass case. What's hard about this?
And of course, those other artifacts that you can't equip to yourself personally, but you can have it for keeps. It's on display in your throne room when somebody visits the court, and then you get this camera view, so to speak. And you can see it's like here. This is where I keep the Ark of the Covenant. There. Don't ask where I found it.
Mm-hmm. I have a T-Rex skull.
Yeah, and all of that. And we mentioned in the previous podcast how to get artifacts. It's by inspired people, but also you can call for a smith to make them for you. And also it's not a court position as much as another, I guess, minor title, which is adventurer, where send a guy who is really skilled at just about everything, especially Masta, to go out on an adventure, fund his expedition for them to go to some place on a search for a legendary artifact, or if a lower chance, something less than that.
Yeah, the crystal skull. I got it.
And even during the game, he'll give you updates. It's like, hey, greetings from Anatolia. That's where I'm at, and I'm still in search of this artifact.
Need more money.
Yes, he'll even ask you to send money. Which, again, it would be a lot useful if you're running a well-income kingdom, especially a large one, because, position, again, maintenance of artifacts, appointing titles to other people, and all the other things, that sounds like a lot of payment.
Well, the natives are restless. Send more men so we can wipe them out.
So yeah, those are pretty much of the things that are coming up for the Royal Court DLC. It's just the titles, artifacts, languages, and send a guy out to an adventure. If only you were to go on an adventure yourself. If only they could do that for pilgrimages.
I used to compare when we first started talking about these various strategy and grand strategy games as like SimCity. But it's really not. Because in SimCity, you could at least build shit. This is just... it's just talking. They're just talking and talking and talking.
Yeah, it's a mixture.
But not even that, man, because it's like... Because it's all text. It's just menus, right? Like, even in CK3 where they added all the fancy animations and whoops, you accidentally showed your character's penis, you better black that out.
Now they have a leaf like Michelangelo's David statue in cartoons.
Okay. I always found that weird because the actual statue doesn't. Anyways, but it's not like a graphically intensive game. It's just, text. It's like, okay, well, you have a plus.
Yeah, you got the world map.
Huh?
The world map and the text.
I know, but it's not like in old strategy games I used to play. The only one I always go back to, because it's the one I have most vivid on my memory, is like Rise of Nations, right?
And Command and Conquer.
Yeah, but I never paid attention to you playing those. Rise of Nations. It's like, okay, here's a little soldier man, and way over there is another soldier man, and you're going to move your tiny dude all the way over there, and then you're going to fire at each other. And at least that's combat, and it's, Crusader Kings and UE4 is just like, man, there's a lot of reading.
Yeah, that now it's just numbers and odds and advantages and all that during combat.
Which I'm totally fine with if it's put in a system that's interesting, like a real RPG instead of this RPG light stuff. What it needs really is just more window dressing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to tell you something. You play, I don't want to say exclusively strategy games, but you play an inordinate amount of them in the last however many years. I genuinely stay away from that sort of thing because I find it dull. But if there's enough good window dressing around it, you could get me interested. I have played quite a few strategy games, over these years.
With RPG elements?
Yes, that's part of it. But also the setting and the system has to be not irritating. For example, I have my Xbox over here has Game Pass on it. And so I just download just whatever. I just play dumbass little indie games, sometimes for points, sometimes for, let's check this out, see if it's any good. Sometimes you get really great games, sometimes you get good games, sometimes you get, wow, this was shit, I'm going to delete it immediately. But there are hidden gems in there, and I've played a few strategy games through that too. One I played was, I don't know if I mentioned this on the show before, but Stellaris.
Mm-hmm.
from the same people, Paradox Interactive. This is like Crusader Kings in space or whatever, but not really.
Sure.
And I literally couldn't get through the tutorial because the tutorial didn't explain what the fuck to do, what you would think would be the point of the tutorial. And the only reason I got it is because it's like, okay, I hate strategy games, but this is sci-fi. I fucking love sci-fi. I prefer sci-fi more than I like, fantasy worlds. For example, I love the Elder Scrolls franchise, but I like Fallout more because it has guns, and there's no giant spiders, just giant scorpions, which don't bother me that much. But anyways, Stellaris is boring as hell, and I couldn't play it. Another example I've been playing fairly recently here is I'm gonna get the name right because these names are very long. Also on Game Pass was Warhammer 40,000 Battlesector. The Warhammer universe is a long storied history of space marines in the year 40,000 fighting orcs in space with guns, and it's like, oh, there's an emperor and there's an imperium, and maybe it's an allegory for Nazis, and I don't really give a shit. It's sci-fi, dudes in big suits hitting ugly things, right? It's cool. It's like Gears of War without the angst. You've heard of this, at least, Warhammer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this one, Battlesector, is a strategy game that's turn-based, and you're just like, okay, when you move your Space Marine here, you can do one of these 3 moves. It's like, okay, good. It's simple. I don't have to worry too much about numbers, because while the numbers are there, it's like, okay, this gives you a 30% chance to hit. I was like, oh, shoot him, see what happens. Well, I missed. Oh, well, we'll try next turn. Who cares? That's, to me, where the barrier is in that there's... Even you would say Crusader Kings III is not a simple game by any means.
Well, they kind of simplified it as compared to 2.
Simplified. It's not a simple game. Not anyone can just pick up and play this, right?
No, but since it's coming to the next-gen consoles, I'm sure it'll be a challenge for them.
Well, just, keyboard controller interface versus keyboard interface. It's not like it's, again, not graphics intensive. But my point being, in order for a strategy game to be interesting to me, it has to have a low barrier of entry. It has to be easy, is what I'm asking. Not easy to play, like all the enemies die in one hit, but easy to learn. Simple. Of like, okay, I'm going to take this unit of Space Marines. They're going to move over here. They're going to shoot these Tyranids. Okay, now it's the Tyranid's turn. They run up to me and they go, and I do some damage. Okay, now it's my turn. And so it's like, this isn't a great example, but it's a chess-based idea of turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. And I would much, much sooner play a turn-based strategy game than a real-time or a grand strategy game. Because those are so fucking complicated.
And yet, I still play Civilization 4 to this day. I even bought that on Steam 2 months ago. And I play that whenever I have free time, and as well as the use of the mods that's been recently updated I like to play on.
If they had, like... I know like, Civilization starts in Stone Age and goes to Space Age. If they made a civilization that started in Space Age and went to the future, maybe I'd be interested in that.
They exist.
What are they called?
Well, on Civilization 4, I do recall that they have a mod that is dedicated to the future era, so to speak.
No mods.
That allows the colonization of space.
One base game, turn-based space game. If you find me that. Outside of Warhammer, because Warhammer makes a shit ton of these strategy games, like, because that's the original tabletop game, right? You roll some dice, and it's like, okay, I've got these units of Ultramarines, and they're going against your unit of Chaos Marines. And we roll some dice, and we move figures on a big table. So they transfer that to video games, which is a very simple interface. And sometimes they're like, okay, now here's a spin-off where it's a first-person shooter, or a less involved strategy game, or strategy game like the fuck are those called? The one that's not the Marines. Hold on, I'm gonna look this up because it's gonna bug me. Oh, Necromunda, which is like Undercity, or sometimes third-person shooter like Space Marine, and there's all these spin-offs. But they also have Warhammer Fantasy, which is the same shit as it ever is everywhere else. There's guys with swords in medieval times, and it's very dull. I don't find that interesting because medieval shit is boring to me. Give me space stuff. Anyways, that's what I want in the future. If I'm ever going to play a strategy game for real serious, it needs to be sci-fi, and it needs to be simple to understand.
And a very good learning curve.
A
Easy to
very
get into.
yes, easy to get into. It doesn't need to be an easy game necessarily, but it needs to say, okay, look, these four things. That's all you need. You don't need to know all this other bullshit. You don't worry about the right dice rolls. We'll handle that. You know, I want the game to do work for me, so I can do the thing that I want most from games: have fun. And speaking of the Game Pass, you only recently got this service after however many years of owning an Xbox One. But what? First of all, I don't even remember why you did it. I think it was for Battlefield, right? 2042.
Uh, what about Battlefield?
Did you not hear the first sentence I said?
No,
What's the last thing you heard me say?
you just veered off a Game Pass and you hesitated. And although, if you're going to be talking about Game Pass, I have a general. I mean, we did play briefly of Back for Blood, but that's just for achievements. No need to
Well,
discuss that thoroughly.
okay.
But
Why bring it up?
also started playing only because I saw many of my friends are playing it, and I was in a party with friends. Not going to name names here, but I was kind of
Wait. I remembered. You were trying to get the beta or the early access to Battlefield 2042. And it was on EA Access or EA Play or whatever they call it. And that came with Game Pass. And that's why you finally signed up for Game Pass. Yes, now I remember.
Yes.
Okay. Anyways, so you finally got the fucking thing. And you started playing what game?
Sea of Thieves.
From Rare. They used to make interesting Nintendo 64 games. Now they just do this pirate thing.
Who are they? The developers?
Yeah, Rareware.
My God, they're still around.
Well, none of the people who worked there originally are still there, so technically.
Yeah. So apparently that. I was about to say, how long has that game been around?
A few years, maybe since 2015. I'm not sure. I never found it.
I mean,
in
it
any
looks
way
like a
interesting.
2015 game.
Ouch.
But I'm just saying it not to say that to offend anybody who plays it, including myself. I'm just saying what I got the impression of.
I've seen a lot of videos on it over the years, and every single time looks like it's right up your alley because it looks like a pain in the ass to play. Mostly because other players will just fuck with you.
We never had those encounters back in.
Right.
I almost said back in my day, like I sound like friggin' old man. No, cut the word. It's a character I come up with an Oregon Trail. Anyways,
Okay, cutting all that.
uh, Sea of Thieves. Started playing because my friends are playing, which they've played it before. It's just I've been hearing, hollering what the hell's going on over there, and I was kind of intrigued. So I had to download that game in secret while I was in the party with them, and I played the tutorial and did all that. And this is not the kind of game you would have to play single.
No, it kind of forces you to be with other people.
It encourages.
Forces.
Because if you're gonna be, if you're gonna do it a solo and dual players, you sail around in a nibble sloop, while players if you are three guys, you could, I was about to say drive. You could sail on the brigantine, or a four-man
Bigger boat, yes.
Yeah, and then or even a four-man galleon.
An even bigger boat.
Yes. Not to mention a lot more stuff inside, which is something, of course, not a single man could do all that. And
Well, that's the other thing, because what you have to do is like, I'm just gonna say a bunch of words. You get to like raise the mizzen mast and top off the topsails and all that crap for a master and commander. Like you actually have to do all the things on the boat.
yeah, that's why I said no way you can do it solo. I mean, I once I even did it during a freaking tutorial, even post-tutorial bit, that I've sailed around. I almost said drove again. Sail around this sloop, because the wheel, and where I just decide to. It's like, okay, I need to park, so to speak, at this pier. So I just turned this steering wheel, whatever the fuck they call that wheel, just drive it all the way left, and then
You're such a nautical expert.
yeah, and then they just turn all the way to the left or whatever is the, is it port or starboard or is it whatever the. Anyways, drove it to the left, and then as soon as I let go of the wheel, as it's driving left, I'm just saying driving because I'm not using
Yeah.
nautical terms anymore. Um, and then I adjust those sails all the way up, and then drop the anchor, and you get this picture of this ship doing a parallel parking job that I did, even though I crashed a bit of it, which did cause a little hole on it, which the water was come pouring in.
Oh yeah, and you
Under
have to
it.
go fix that.
Yeah,
God.
and I fixed it myself. And the water that was still in that ship, well, grab a bucket and dump it outside. Don't dump it in any part of the ship. It's gonna seep its way back in to where it was.
It's if you look at if you've never it's unlikely you've never heard of it, but if you've never heard of it, we're describing this ultra gritty realistic pirate game, but it's got the goofiest cartoony graphics you've ever seen. It looks like it's Fortnite before Fortnite in terms of everyone's a big cartoon looking character.
Yeah. Despite the fact it sounded like a very realistic game, just what I described to you of this
Well, the
absurdness.
gameplay is realistic, and you have to worry about all the sailing crap. And not to mention, do you have to worry about all the sailing crap? You have to worry about pirates. In fact, other players who may be in a group of a raiding party, shall we say, who come over and fire cannon at you, and you're just fucked.
Yeah, we fired back. And when it comes to combat, you're not only equipped with a cutlass, but also a flintlock pistol and a scoped flintlock musket, even though it's got an accuracy of a rifle and not a musket, like we used to talk about from Hold Fast Nations at War. So yeah, that's quite a thing. Um, and not to mention, if you want to heal your health, eat some food. That was either start off with in the ship, even though you're only eating a banana at this point, because you don't want to get scurvy. And
Obviously,
and each of the ships also has a frying pan. Where what I did was during the free time as we were sailing along, where I went fishing, and it takes a while. Then the fish gets caught, and of course you do that little fighting thing, kind of like how you do in Red Dead Redemption 2 fishing, if you ever done that.
only in that one mission where I had to fish with Baby Jack.
And as well as with Dutch and Hosea, that little boat.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So I did a bit of fishing there, where once you got your fish in hand, you take it to the frying pan, and then you cook it and let it cook for a while. I had one of my friends one time overcooked it. The fish was on fire, and then the ship caught fire, and we had to put it out with water. Never leave it
another thing,
unattended.
another thing that I've never played this game. I've never downloaded it. First of all, it's a very large file size. Um, like I mentioned before, I've seen videos. The videos I've seen where every single time the guy's like, okay, what do I do in this game? I go get a quest from some dude. Okay, what does the dude want? He wants 4 chickens. Okay, where are the chickens? Also, there has to be this specific color. Okay, so you have to bring him back 4 chickens of a specific color, and he gives you like, I don't know, $50, doubloons, whatever the currency is. And you gotta sail all the way, damn way around the world, worrying about all these little silly things that go wrong with your ship and other players. And it's like, man, none of this
And
sounds
ghost
fun at all.
pirates.
But so many people play it still. It's got a huge community.
Well, it's an open world game. Everybody loves open world
Open
games.
sea game. It's an open sea game that just looks so unfun.
and and the reason why I had so much fun with that is because the absurdness of how realistic
Well,
this is.
and you were with other people.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Yeah, it's just more the merrier, as the old saying goes. And of course, the way to make money is to complete the deliveries, because as these voyages are offered by these trading companies such as the Gold Hoarders, the Order of Souls, and the Merchant Alliance. I only did the Merchant Alliance.
Yeah. So is it fun?
Well, if you're with other people, then yes. But if you had 3, as in like you and 2 other guys, kinda 2 is a bit of a hassle. But doing all by yourself, oh, you're going to get yourself bored and you're going to do something rather reckless, like that parallel parking thing, like I did. Which, by the way, I did get an achievement for that. Not because of that. It's just something that I did with the whole turn all the way to a certain direction while dropping the anchor at the same time. It was a little achievement. I did it by complete accident.
So I really like Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag and Assassin's Creed Rogue, and the few sailing missions you do have in Assassin's Creed 3. And that's it for my pirate life. I don't need any more.
Hmm. I don't know any pirate shanties myself.
Oh, I know a bunch from those 3 games, but I'm not singing them here.
And yes, you can play instruments to pass the time in addition to fishing and all that. Like you can play a little accordion or a flute or a banjo. Yes, there's a pirate banjo and all that. I could talk more details, but honestly, I have not played that game enough. I only played like twice, but I know good enough of it to the point where
Well, you're going to be doing the same thing over and over. Let's be real.
whenever that time comes, whenever we get in a party together, I'll be downright to it.
I mentioned briefly that you've been. I don't know if we talked about last time. When did you say we did this? October?
Yes, October.
Had you played Battlefield by then? Or just the beta?
The Battlefield full game.
Yeah.
Yes, I've played the full game since. Oh, like I recall, wasn't there a little early access thing that wasn't beta?
Yeah, that was the thing we were trying to get with Game Pass.
Oh yeah,
right.
10 hours. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I did not use up all the 10 hours. I just did what I could.
Anyways, you bought the game and you've been playing it. Is it still a broken fucking mess?
Uh, I would say sort of. Mostly the glitchiness of what the hell is that vehicle doing there and all that, and why is that guy ragdolling looking funny?
Could be argued that that's the charm, quote unquote, of Battlefield.
Yeah, including a guy's neck looks all stretched out like it's like, yep, his neck is broken, but he's got it stretched out to an S shape. If it's going through the wall, of course.
I played a little bit. Again, for Game Pass, not to get too far into it, has these thing called quests where you need to accomplish certain objectives or play a certain game for points that you can redeem for real money, or equivalent real money to buy things, blah, blah, blah. So I did play Battlefield 2042 myself. I played 3 matches. Now, during the second match, I didn't actually play because my character loaded in without a loadout, and I couldn't change anything.
What?
So all I had was my assault rifle, and that's it.
That's a glitch.
Yeah. So, anyways, I came back the third time. I did say, you know what? Another weird thing is in that third game, I had like a 12-player kill streak with. If you know anything about me, if you, heaven forbid you've listened to the last 50 episodes, I'm not terribly good at online games, especially shooters. So, the specifics of what happened is it's a night map, and I'm standing, I think, relatively out in the open, and the enemy is just running past me, and they don't see me. And I'm just mowing them down, and nobody's reviving anyone.
He didn't even have a
And
suppressor
and
then.
nobody's noticing me at all. I'm confused that I'm getting this incredible streak. And I referenced this later to Rob, and he's like, "Yeah, well, they probably just didn't see you, because Rob, I don't know if you're listening, but loves, I have to say, loves Battlefield. I have to, because he plays it all the time. Now, if you listen to him, it doesn't sound like he loves it, but he must, otherwise he wouldn't put so much time into it.
He's just passionate about it.
I guess. But, man, every time it doesn't sound like he's having fun, but he sort of is playing it a lot. I don't know.
Even I get stressful sometimes, mostly at my own shortcomings. I don't blame the enemy. I blame myself very often. Like if I'm trying to do some little fancy stunt and I'm like, oh, that would have looked cool and all that. Oh, well.
I know, but I don't even want to get to that point. You know, it's like, I have enough frustration in my life. I'm a very easily frustrated guy. So I want to avoid games which are supposed to be fucking fun. That might be the title of this episode. Games are supposed to be fucking fun. It's supposed to be fun, so I don't need extra stress of, like, facing off another human person. It's one thing to beat a computer at something. It's another thing entirely to beat a human person on the other end of the internet skyways there, in Bangladesh or wherever the fuck he's playing it from, and probably China, who is very good at the game, and I'm not, because I don't have the time or patience to put into it. That's Battlefield.
it's it's just like any time that I play a Battlefield, I have a tendency to suspense my disbelief. Like as in I'm my own character, so to speak, when I do these matches, especially when I play on my own rather than with friends. I'm my own man. Not saying trying to be a team player or anything. I mean, sometimes a team player if we're with a really good squad, but if I'm ventured off doing some little silly adventure of going behind enemy lines just to kill a few enemies there, I'm having a time of my life for whatever reason.
I know, but at that point, you're like making a game within a game. You're making your own fun.
Yeah, it's just I have this imaginative creativity.
Frankly, I think that's all the time Battlefield deserves. So, speaking of imaginative creativity, your GTA series?
Yeah, GTA 5. Well, it is a long running game. It might as well be considered a series with its DLCs.
I know, but your series in terms of like video content. Yeah, because last time we were here, you said you didn't
Yeah,
think you could get to 100.
yeah. It was 117 was the last estimated number.
What are we at now?
112. No, no, no. 122.
So is this one of those situations where you don't want to stop making these, or you don't think about it until you do?
It is 122. The situation. It's more of this last thing that I did was quite possibly the greatest GTA 5 Black Widow video I've ever done because not only it was also the longest. It was about 40 minutes long. It was that Kyle Perico heist, which I described it very briefly on another podcast from last year.
It's a very involved thing that's supposed to be with three other people at least.
Yeah, but I did it solo, and and I basically really turned it into a whole, made it look like a believable story. It felt
Hmm.
more like a story than a mission.
Again, because of the editing tools that Rockstar gives you in the game.
Yes, huh. Especially with the changing scenarios during the said mission. Because, I mean, do you want me to give the premise of the whole thing? Because,
No,
you would,
it's a heist. You described a heist before.
yeah, but I think you would be very much impressed if you were to watch it yourself. If you have like 40 minutes of free time.
It's an effort for me to watch anything, you know.
Yeah. Which again, it's pretty compelling.
If you do say so yourself.
Yes. So again, it's 122 videos on that whole playlist, and I felt that this last one I did was basically my magnum opus. And I feel that if I were to produce any more videos, it's gonna need to wait a couple of months, take a hiatus.
You said this last time. Did I mention this? The very last podcast we said. You're like, oh, I'm at 80 and I think I'm going to have to take a hiatus here. And then you made more.
All it needs is some inspiration
Hmm.
and a kick in the whatever.
You can say S. We're an M-rated show. Do you want to transition to... I'll edit this if necessary. Do you want to transition to Adventures here or you have something else? Hmm?
Do you want to talk about the contract DLC very briefly?
Oh, I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, you may have to switch that around in terms of what we'll transition to the next game. Yeah, that GTA 5 came out with the newest DLC, and that game's been around for about 8 years now.
It was on the last generation. Technically, it was on 2 generations ago at this point.
Yeah, 360. If we're talking Xbox sense, because that's my only
Mm-hmm.
understandable. And then many people ask for a single player DLC, and this is the closest one you're ever going to get because it features one of the guys that's from the story mode. Talking about Franklin.
Yeah, Franklin Clinton. Which again, you've never even, in all the years you've owned this game, you've never even bothered to play the story mode.
I may finally start playing the story mode on next gen GTA.
Hmm.
Keyword may. So in that DLC, they added some new content, mostly missions and jobs that they'll give you because they have what they call a celebrity solutions agency.
So like when there's scandal, they PR department.
I don't know, but there's two separate contracts. One is security contracts, such as you do missions like liquidate assets, where you locate and destroy their equipment as requested by the client, or go recover a client's stolen vehicle. Or this one, which was the very first mission I did, that was given to me at random because I decided to call Franklin on the phone just to request a job, any job. And he gave me gang termination, which is to eliminate senior gang members as requested by the client. Holy crap, it was a huge pain in the ass for that particular mission.
I know, but you're basically doing the same thing as you did previously. It's just for different people, which is really Grand Theft Auto in a fucking nutshell.
Yeah, so yeah, those are some examples of security contracts. I'm sure there's more coming up when I play more of this. There's also VIP contracts, which I haven't done one yet. I just did one mission and it's like, okay, I'm done. I'll come back to it some other day because that requires a lot of time and input, as with most things. And this VIP contract, as Franklin actually told me over the phone, it says, hey, you should meet this VIP. He's at the golf club. He's at the course. You know, they be playing that boring ass game and all that. His own words, not mine.
Mm-hmm.
So, whatever that may be, it's probably a little meeting or an escort to take him from this one place to another, just like this one casino mission I did with. It's like, now I gotta drive this client, but I have to drive this limousine. Oh, and don't drive too fast, and don't crash it. Drive like how a real limo driver should drive. A chauffeur.
Fun.
Yeah. And they added 3 new weapons in this DLC. I mean, besides the clothing and the cars, which is always happens.
There's a billion of them.
Yeah. 3 new weapons include a heavy rifle, which is another assault rifle type weapon. And another is a stun gun, which is a taser. I did test it on an NPC once, just some guy off the street to see how it goes. Like, you just shoot it, oh, guy goes down, but he ain't dead yet. Until, I mean, yes, your weapon does
that
have
was in
to
the
charge
base
up.
game.
Yeah, the weapon has to charge up, and as for that NPC, for some reason, he ain't getting up. He's not dead, he's just knocked the fuck out.
Anytime there's new GTA content of any kind, which is like 3 times a month, you get assholes on Twitter complaining about, oh, when's GTA 6? We don't want none of this, we want GTA 6. And it's like, first of all, that's years away. Secondly, if you want new Grand Theft Auto content, you have to stop buying old Grand Theft Auto content. Do you know why they've been producing GTA Online stuff for 10 years? Because people keep buying money. They buy the fucking shark cards from Cousin Brucey, and it prints money. It's like Epic and Fortnite. They don't need to do anything else than do the same stuff they've been doing. They don't need to innovate at all if people just keep spending money on the thing. Now, you've never bought a shark card, right? You've earned all your money legitimate criminal enterprise.
Yeah, through all hard work and dedication. Even though it's kind of lessened these days. Not because of other games, it's just, well, let's just say there's been some changes of how you enter solo lobbies. You
can't use your trick that you used to do all the jobs easier, yeah.
No. It requires a lot more steps, and it's too hard to memorize. And also, finally, the one more weapon forgot to mention here, EMP launcher, which is basically, it works like the compact grenade launcher, except it disables vehicles for a short period of time. To me, it's like I can see that weapon being used a lot during the regular heist, the old heists, where, especially that final heist, where imagine you're on the motorcycle and there's these thousands of cop cars coming after you, and then you shoot back with your EMP launcher, especially if you're on a motorcycle. You shoot the EMP, and then it stops them dead for a good couple of seconds before it gets up and running again for you to get away. A good getaway weapon, so to speak.
I guess.
Haven't tested on an aircraft. That one's going to have to catch the round in order to make that happen. It doesn't go off like an airburst. It's impact
I
only.
assume not. Yeah, it's not a fucking GoldenEye.
So that's pretty much it about this particular DLC, which I'll be sure to put more time in whenever I'm bored.
Tangentially speaking about Black Widow and also Game Pass, for another inexplicable reason, decided, because it's on Game Pass, to download the Marvel's Avengers game from Square Enix. Came out last year.
I
I
originally
played.
thought that was in 2019, but I guess I was wrong.
Wasn't it last year? Am I insane? Uh, Whenever the hell it came out, I played it on both consoles. I had because I think we've mentioned before. I'm a very big Marvel fan from a very long time ago. Um, while I had my share of fun with it, I'm kind of done with it. On the PlayStation version, I 100% it. I did literally everything you can do in the game, and I was like, I don't. This was right like a week. I platinumed it 1 week before they released the Black Panther DLC, which I knew was going to add the file size. Which is the other thing.
So you were out of there at that time.
The game is huge. It is over 100 gigabytes easy, plus whatever updates they've added since I've stopped playing. When I last played, it was like 120, so it's got to be in the stratosphere by now. And they keep adding more characters and missions and stuff, so the file size just keeps going up and up and up. And it's like, I, I'm having to defend the game because I like the properties, but the actual game is just like, fuck, this doesn't need to be this huge. You guys have got to learn how to shrink your file size down, texture bump mapping. I don't know what it is. I'm not a game dev, but I play them a lot. I play so many of them that I don't have room for fake huge games. So when you told me, I was like, oh, I downloaded Marvel's Avengers, I was like, how do you have room for that?
And that was months ago, and I haven't really started playing until a little bit in November, and until nowadays,
Yeah,
as
that's the
recent
other
as a
thing.
few
As soon as
days
you got
ago.
Game Pass, you're like, okay, I'm gonna download 5 games and then not play any of them.
Well, sometimes just get on it, and it's like, hey, the daily pass tells you, hey, play this game, play this game, play this game, and then you'll
That's
get
true.
done. I just log in, that's it. And sometimes pick up those little weekly free consumables in Mars
How
Avengers.
far are you in Avengers?
As far, in context, just the first campaign, I would say about 20%.
So you've done nothing.
Yep, I just basically only played
Yeah.
as Miss Marvel and Hulk.
The story mode, I will say, is actually a pretty good story, all things considered.
All the writing and everything.
Yeah, they kind of force you. I don't want to force is the wrong word, but they kind of force you to play as every character, right? You unlock new ones as you go throughout the campaign, and they auto switch you to them, so you get a feel for how they play. And for the most part, they all do play fairly differently. I mean, it's another game where you really do the same thing over and over. You find a robot or a name trooper, and you beat the shit out of them, and maybe kill them. Probably kill them. And then you go into the next one, and then you beat a bigger dude or a bigger robot, and it's kind of the same thing over and over, but it's a good same thing over and over because it's a superhero fiction. What do they do but beat the shit out of bad guys? Now you can say that repetition can be a negative, and I understand that totally, but
I think the term you're looking for is replayability.
I guess, especially if you like want to. I didn't max out every character. I think I maxed out 2 of them. But if you want to like, if you get good gear drops, which is the other major negative people have, is like gear drops. It's like, oh, here's a box, open it. Okay, it's got it gives you slightly more health, but now your punches are weaker. It's like, well, fuck. Well, what I have on right now gives me less health, but my punches are stronger. And this is in a lot of video games. But I think this is a problem. This is going to be a weird comparison, but it'll make sense. Assassin's Creed. When they switched over to their more RPG format in Origins and Odyssey, especially Odyssey, Odyssey gave you a new weapon or new armor part every 2 minutes. You pick one off a corpse, you'd walk into a place, you'd open up a chest, you'd find it on the ground. People would literally just, for quest rewards, you get new armor all the damn time. Constantly. And it's actually really annoying because you have to go to your menu and it's like, okay, is this better? Is it worse? If I dismantle it, do I sell it? And in Valhalla, luckily they figured that out where they give you very little gear and it's sparse. It's more sparse. Avengers makes the mistake of giving you too much gear all the goddamn time. You're constantly getting new gear. And because you have 6 or 8 characters, 9, um, it's like, okay, you got a new wrist launcher for Black Widow. Okay, now you got new boots for Iron Man. Okay, now you got a new hammer for Thor. It's like, you got to compare all these annoying numbers, and it's like, man, it would be so much more simple if there weren't so much gear in this stupid game.
They kind of simplified it recently, especially the resources from the last updates. Ever since you were out
That's
of
the other
there,
thing. There's like 20 different resources in this fucking game.
yeah, they've narrowed it down to like 2 to 4 for me. That's what it said on
Well,
the tooltips, anyhow.
That's fine. That's better because I played it at launch. I got this thing at launch when it wasn't broken per se, but it was very glitchy and buggy. But that's modern gaming. These games are so gigantic and they've got so many things running in the background that unless you delay it for years and years, and Avengers was delayed, you're gonna have things that the developers can't foresee. They can't guess every single bug. They can do their hardest to work at them, but games are going to be published with bugs. And there's so much complaining. Avengers had a real negative feedback over the last few years. And it's like, well, what do you want? At least they're fixing it. It could be like EA with Anthem, where it was broken and they decided, well, we're not going to fix it. So, bye, we're done supporting this game. I think it's better for them to constantly be fixing rather than abandoning. Like, I know I've mentioned this before, Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the best games I've played in years. But I won't pretend that game doesn't have its own technical flaws. But CDPR is working to fix it. It's so much better than just saying, we got your money, fuck them. So, Avengers, they keep adding new characters and the file size gets bigger, but damn it, they're supporting the game. They are continuing to work on it, and that's good,
ultimately. They put a lot of money into that.
That's also true, and they've lost a lot of money. And one of the reasons they've lost a lot of money is a very stupid-ass deal with Sony. So you're playing the Xbox version, right?
Yes, the Xbox version, which, again, you've mentioned about the number of characters, which
yes.
You are correct, it is 9 with, Black Panther being most recent, although I do see an empty slot there that's, in the open, and where you could see the background there of that little missing slot, so I'm sure they'll add another on that version, at least.
Well, if you're on the Xbox, you'll never get to play as Spider-Man in that game, because Square Enix, who publishes the game, made a deal with Sony that only the PlayStation 4 and 5 versions of this game can have Spider-Man, the character in it, because Sony, technically, not Marvel, owns the publishing rights to the character of Spider-Man. Even on PC, you can't get him. So while you have, your standard Avengers, let's not name them all, plus they've added, 2 Archers and Black Panther, Spider-Man is locked behind Sony consoles. Huh?
Hawkeye wasn't in the original, whatchamacallit, the base game?
No, the first major DLC was Kate Bishop, then Hawkeye.
Oh.
Then Black Panther, then Spider-Man, but only if you're on PlayStation 4 or 5. And there's obviously no crossplay, so you can't dare have Spider-Man on Xbox. The really fucking dumb thing about this is in the last month, they've added Spider-Man to Fortnite. I don't know if you've ever heard of this game. And that can be played fucking anywhere. And Sony has no problem having Spider-Man over on the Xbox consoles there. But heaven forbid they put him in the goddamn Avengers game, where it would be fine. It's ridiculous. So, everyone knew that going into it. Square Enix announced ahead before the game ever released, we're going to put Spider-Man in this game, but he's only going to be on the PlayStation. Everybody who didn't get a PlayStation or wasn't going to was annoyed at this. So it suffered in sales. So yeah, they lost a shitload of money just based on character locking. Just dumb. I have no idea why.
Even one time I saw a community challenge, which, whenever I got on Marvel's Avengers, in the main menu on the top right of the screen, I even saw
beat up huge, X number of bots or whatever.
Yeah, that one, the last one they did not reach the goal.
That happens. Sometimes they set unrealistic goals. Well, that depends also. I've seen the higher level enemies. It's like if it's Exos or whatever the big robots are called they look like big crabs. I can't remember what they're called.
Haven't encountered them.
Well, you will. Are you? Let's get aside all my negatives. I've already beaten the game. I don't know if I'll ever play it again, especially at its very large file size. I might, because I am interested in the content, the Black Panther and Spider-Man stuff, but the file size is really what keeps me off it. More so than the glitches, more so than the gear drops, more so than the resources. It's like, this is a big file size. This is a huge banana.
And this is all new to me.
Are you having fun? The hell of what all I said.
Well, since I haven't played all the characters yet, so I would say for now, yeah, I'm having fun getting a real hang of it. Just a learning curve and actually remind myself, it's like, I'm supposed to do that thing. Yeah, I had those times, but you gotta learn from it. And all that.
This is another game. You can't play the campaign mission with other people. Most of the missions.
This
But
first one?
some missions you can play with friends, and then I assume it's gonna be better with that.
Yeah. And that's why I thought about you and I one day.
I might, but it needs to come down in size. I've got Forza, which is over 120 gigs. I've got Cyberpunk, which is over 100 gigs. I've got another game that I don't need to talk about that has like 80 gigs. When I last had Metro Exodus on there, it was 80 gigs. Fucking Shadow of War is 70 something. These games are huge. And you're like, well, Loki, why don't you just pick a game and finish it? And I'm like, well, fuck you. Don't tell me what to do.
And what else regarding this game? It's like, is there a character that you? It's like, yeah, you've leveled up everybody, even some to the max. Is there? I mean, I was about to say is there one that you prefer? Like, do you have a favorite? But I recall you told me personally it's more personal preference than anything else.
It really is depending on how you like to fun. Like, I never got, my lowest level character was Iron Man. I just didn't like the flying.
Oh
So,
yeah, that I could not get the hang of it. Even I did that little. The last thing I did before I got off that night was that little harm training with Iron Man, playing as Iron Man. You know,
yeah.
that little thing there. Yeah, that flying thing that kind of threw me off. I'm like, not happening.
Well, when Thor uses the same system when you get him, so it's the exact same thing. Different powers, obviously, but and the hammer is actually pretty good because it comes back. But
Oh yeah, the
the
boomerang.
flying system is so counterintuitive. You're like, I didn't like the flying. Like hovering is fine. Flying sucks.
Yeah, just fly, hover. Like especially if you're into this sort of thing.
Yeah, because the maps, some of the maps when you go on these missions, I don't know, drop zones or whatever they're called, they're gigantic. So you're doing a lot of walking or a lot of jumping or a lot of flying. I think towards the end you have to do what are known as hive missions, which are basically like gauntlets. It's room after room after room, and to 100% the game you had to do 50 of them, which is a fucking absurd number. But I did it, and near the end I was just like speed running it with I maxed out Black Widow because those are the drops I got, and she runs very fast, and you just use the dual guns and just run, go through the thing. I was doing the hives in like 10 minutes each, but it's a grindy game. The game wants you to spend time in it, which is why it just drip feeds you constantly. But it's not like it doesn't give you a lot. It gives you a little bit all the time, and that's their idea of how to keep you playing the game.
Yeah,
Live service game.
yeah, and I'm that kind of person that likes doing that.
I can be too, but man, only to a degree. Then I hit my degree. I'm not saying I'll never go back. I probably will. It's very likely I will.
Yeah, especially when
But
they'll
that's
add more characters. I mean,
but that's not
like,
again. But that's not because I like the game. It's because I like Marvel as a property. It's like there have been leaks before the game came out. Some data miners as like, all the maybe the Fan Four. I don't know if the Fan Four were in there, but Doctor Strange for sure, and a bunch of other fuckers in the Marvel universe. And it's like I don't think any of the X Men are technically legally allowed to be in there. And Guardians of the Galaxy got their own game this year, which is very good, by the way. Um, and I think like Daredevil and some other schmoes are supposed to be there. So
keep it up like that, and it'll turn into a brand new version of Marvel's Ultimate Alliance.
yes, except Marvel Ultimate Alliance is an RPG that has tiny characters and a small file size. As I was saying, they keep adding new characters and new places. Like you can go to Wakanda now. It's gigantic, but honest to God, I would be playing it now if it weren't 120, 130 gigs. I would. Speaking of long, this show. Everything else?
Yeah, but the one final question, which is something that some of these games of what they all have in common is that they all got, like upon their release, they would have some issues and other that, and some were delayed a bit, and
Every
yet
one of the
issues still come up. And the question I ask now is, should upcoming games be delayed to be more developed to run better, or for the lack of a better term?
I think every single game we've talked about today had some technical problem, right?
Yeah.
Damn near. As I tried to say earlier, it's like developers can't anticipate every single problem. You know, for a glitch to be fixed, it has to be repeatable. So let's say you had a weird glitch in Battlefield, right?
Yeah.
So unless other people also have that same glitch, it's not something that can be fixed. It's just a one-time, well, that's weird, and sort of ghost of the machine style thing. But if there are technical problems that multitudes of people are experiencing, then it's a fixable issue because it's the same issue. So it's not like developers are purposefully putting out buggy games. People, assholes on Twitter seem to think this is the case all day long. EA and Activision is like, oh, they just put out a buggy game and expect the players to fix it. It's like, no, they put out the game that they have allotted time for, and they reserve the release date for. And if they move that release date, by the way, they lose the investors lose money on their return, and investors don't like losing money on their return. So it is investor to publisher, and then developer. But nobody bitches at the investors or publishers; they bitch at the developers, because they're the ones who actually fix the problems that are happening post-release. So, should a game be delayed to fix all the problems? In an ideal world, yes, but it is impossible to fix all the problems. When you and I, well, not about you, but when I first started gaming on the Genesis, it's like, okay, if this game is buggy, too bad, fucko. There's literally nothing that can be done about it because the internet didn't exist to everyone. Now it's like,
just
okay,
the way it is.
Yeah, it's like, okay. Well, Avengers tried to do this thing where you pay for, not only pay for cosmetics, but you pay for resources. And people are bitched all day long, and they say, all right, fine, we won't do that. But how the fuck else are they going to recoup their losses from so many people being mad that the game was buggy? It's like, it's a business. Video games used to be a hobby, and now are a serious business that makes money and needs to make money to continue going. And Rockstar has found out how to exploit this by releasing shark cards for money, for content, and it's a cycle. Epic has figured this out with Fortnite by releasing new skins for your Duplo-looking idiot and constantly changing the map and your dumbass battle royale game from children. Xbox, technically Microsoft, has figured this out in Minecraft while doing the same stupid shit to your blocky little idiot. So it is each publisher and developer, each publisher really, to try to, I don't want to say exploit, but figure out a way to keep their game going. And if you don't want a game to keep going, you can stop playing it, but you can't make everyone stop playing it. They're going to release buggy games, not on purpose, but because they need to be released. And if we're lucky, they'll be fixed. And if we're unlucky, they won't be. They'll lose enough money to shut the studio down, which is what Sony loves to do. But no, to answer, I on a very long rant here, but to answer your question, it can't be. It can't be forever delayed to fix everything, because you can't fix everything. Does that answer your question in the longest way possible?
I guess you nailed it on the head there.
It's something I'm very passionate about. I've the last few years, especially Avengers and Cyberpunk, I've been the champion of these two games so hard. But because I like the content, these things are supposed to be fun. And yeah, there are glitches, and yeah, technical problems, and yeah, resources, blah, 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 file size. But they're supposed to be fun. We're supposed to enjoy our time with them. And that to me outweighs so much bullshit that I will forgive a lot of technical problems. I won't forgive it in something like Battlefield, where the content isn't something I enjoy. So if I see a graphical problem or a major glitch, it's like, oh, you fuckos. But like Cyberpunk is like, oh, that guy walked through the wall. Whatever. What do I give a shit? That's not what the game is about. Oh no, this grass texture doesn't move realistically when I walk through it. Oh wait, I'm not playing Grass Texture Simulator 2021. Ridiculous. This is our last show of the year, so what would you say the best game you played this year is?
Oh, my personal game of the year?
Yeah, we used to do these all the time. We used to do, me and the other two guys, do countdown lists of worst games of the year and best games of the year, but, that was when they played a lot more. Well, I still play everything.
Well, what do you think for yourself? Like, what's your game of the year?
I had, technically still Cyberpunk. I'm gonna say Deathloop from Bethesda. Arcane. It's gonna take way too much context for you to understand what the game is, but Deathloop.
Mm-hmm.
For me. Did you play any games that came out in 2021?
I don't think so. Did I mean otherwise it would be cheating just to mention some old game from a year or two ago.
Yeah, it's whatever most fun you had this year. Go ahead.
Most fun or entertained and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking. I think I know it's obviously going to be one of those grand strategy games, but if I was to go on the council here, it would probably be one of those. Fuck, I don't know. To be real honest,
Well, we used to give the guys a lot of leeway to do, or days ahead of time to come up with a list. But the list so much isn't so much important as it is, who has fun. Like, who gives a shit about the Game Awards? Fuck the Game Awards. Fuck Jeff Keighley. Fuck IGN. GameSpot. All those fuckers. Fuck them all. The best game you play the year is up to you personally, ultimately, and it always will be.
no matter how old it is.
And no matter how bad it is, too. It's like if you had said Battlefield, I'd been fine, whatever. It's fine because
I thought about saying it, but is it really come down to despite the least amount of time you spend on it?
whatever. It's the most amount of fun. Time spent isn't like I understand these things are 60 and soon to be if Sony has their way $70, but the price isn't so much important as your enjoyment out of it is. If you pay $70 just in the last 5 hours and you had fun with it, great. If you paid $60 for something the last 50 hours and you hated every second of it, that's not so great. So the monetary value isn't as important as the fun value, and we can't really value that. You can't put a price on fun.
Yeah, much like I told you, I had a lot of fun with Sea of Thieves for an absurd reason.
Yeah,
And then I
and that
had,
game looks miserable to me. I would never touch that.
and I had fun with Battlefield only because I make my own fun and come up
Yeah,
with my own little thing. Because I can suspend my disbelief.
well then that's what matters. I'll say for the 18th time today, these things are supposed to be fun.
Yeah, and finally, yes, getting the real hang of the Avengers, and yeah, it does become a little bit of fun when you beat up bad guys, wave after wave of them. Especially more so when I start playing all the other ones, all the other characters with their
I'm,
own.
I'm not I'm not saying no to you and I playing it, but if you're like, hey, let's get on Elder Scrolls Online, which we played recently again,
Mhm.
I'd be like, sure, I've already got it. Let's do a thing. And if you're like, help me with this Avengers thing, I'm like, fuck, what do I have to delete so I can download this game again?
If there's something that's, gee, I don't know, maybe a daily quest on the Game Pass.
Yeah, I know, but that's probably it. But the ideal is like, I finished on the Xbox version. I finished the main campaign and I did some of Hawkeye's thing before I stopped, but I didn't do any of the Black Panther stuff. And you're way the hell behind in the campaign, so much so that you don't even have a third hero yet.
Yeah, but
I believe
let's
it's Iron
just say
Man.
I'm at a point where I'm about to meet Tony Stark, Iron Man.
Yeah, and so that's really far away. So maybe when you
So
finish the game.
So eventually, down the line, it's like we'll eventually get to Thor, Black Widow, and everybody else. And that's the reason why on the main menu screen, so to speak, I see Hulk, Miss Marvel, Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, and Black Panther on there.
Yeah, because they're DLC. You could play them in the operations mode, which is post game missions where you just go up to a place, beat up guys, go to a place and destroy a thing, go to a place and stand there. But that's that game. What's coming up on your channel? Wrap this up.
What's coming up on my channel is obviously the two ongoing CK2 series, as we mentioned before, the Republic of Amalfi and Sogdia, which I believe those two series will continue into the month of January, and we'll likely have to put an end to it right before the month of February comes around in order to prepare for the DLC, the Royal Court DLC, to finally be released after they delayed it for their reason, just to do their best to fix their whatever issues that they may come, because they do not want to have another scrutiny like they did with an EU4 DLC.
Well, that's because they charge an insubordinate amount of money. So as long as they don't charge as much money, I think people won't be as upset.
So yeah, that's why they've learned their lesson. They decided to delay it, and the reaction from the people was, "It's like, okay, we understand, so applaud. We understand your concern."
Let's revisit this applause in February.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
Considering our schedule, it might be another 2 months before we have another show.
or
You done?
if we don't get another winter storm in February, that is.
Let's not think about that.
It's expected to be a warmer winter this time.
Hey, well, you know what thing we don't literally need to be talking about? The fucking weather. Thank you for listening, for tolerating this, like, gigantic size episode. I think this is the longest one you and I have done. The end of the year extravaganza, that's why. The best game of the year is Deathloop and also Battlefield. Why fucking not?
Or Avengers, maybe by technicality of how I really enjoyed it.
Well, if we're going by technicalities, then it's Cyberpunk for me. The worst game is probably some indie piece of shit that I got on Game Pass that I didn't even pay attention to. Who cares? I am on Twitter at Loki Jarson. He is on YouTube. It's not at, but youtube.com/
Lord Masta with a 0.
O is a 0, and the ER is an A. It makes more sense when you type it out. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. It's been great speaking with you. Even though we see each other every day, but I'm talking to him. You know what I mean?
Another thing we don't need to talk about on air. Terrific. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.